Imagine jumping in your car and knowing you want to go somewhere. You don't have your phone, you don't have your mailways, which for you young people is a book of road maps, and no one you know is aware of specifically where this location is. It makes it really hard to get where you want to go. And if you're like me, you'd probably just start driving in the direction of where you think the place is and try and figure it out on the way. The truth is, if you've got no help, you have to start somewhere. This is what it feels like when you know you want to be in a good place financially in the future, but there's just a huge blank and you have no idea of how to get there. In this video, I'm going to talk about the journey which I've experienced, and I'm going to give you 3 rules which I've learnt from growing up in humble beginnings to where I am now. These rules have helped me to change from someone who was just cruising along, living their life and doing their thing, but not getting closer to where they wanted to be long term. My name is Will and I've been in finance since 2007, and from 2011 I've run my own mortgage brokerage down here in Melbourne. The reason I do these videos is to help people make it financially, something that is harder and harder to achieve as the years roll by. I'm going to start with Albert Einstein. He's touted as saying compound interest is the 9th wonder of the world. There is one big glaring problem with this statement. In present times, this rule is wrong. Here's why. In the last 5 years, if you had money sitting in your savings account, you'd get your interest, great. But that doesn't keep up with inflation, especially when you consider you got to pay the tax man interest on that income you just made. Your purchasing power has greatly decreased. The stuff you could buy with 100k in 2020, you can now no longer buy with the increased savings account balance. The cost of stuff has gone up faster than what your money has. Albert Einstein was a genius, so how do we tweak this rule to make it work for the present? Let me start here. There's a reason why you made those bad investments. You bought those low cap mining stocks that one time and they went bad, or your investment properties are leaking money and it's impacting your ability to manage your day-to-day finances. Maybe it was that crypto you bought and you don't even know if it's worth anything anymore. The reason why you made these bad decisions is because you didn't invest your time. You listened to someone who didn't know what they were doing. If you don't know what you're doing, then you're probably gambling and not investing. When I started my business in 2011, I was not an expert. I wasn't fit to run a business. I didn't have the emotional maturity for it. Nevertheless, I took a bet on myself. The thing is, when you start your own thing and you fail, there's no one else to blame. You keep failing until you learn or you quit. I was too stupid to quit, even though my finances were horrible and I probably should have quit. After years of trying to bring things together and hitting hurdles and falling flat on my face, my experience was building failure by failure and, unbeknown to me, slowly compounding, to the point where one day I was self-sufficient. It was only till later on I identified the compound of experience. It has made me much more resilient and way less likely to quit, almost ensuring success. This is very simple, and the reason it is ignored in this day and age is that people expect everything now. That belief is overwhelmingly going to set you up for failure 9.9 times out of 10. Compound experience is the 9th wonder of the world, is the first rule. However, there is one big hole in this rule, and it only works well with rule number 2. I'll get into that in a bit. The understanding that compound experience is the 9th wonder of the world allowed me to think in the right mindset to figure out rule number 2. Here's how I applied it to crypto to get a 600% return on Bitcoin. FYI, I'm not a financial advisor here, guys. This is just my journey. From what I see with most crypto investors is that most of them need more education. Anyway, in 2019, the penny dropped for me on Bitcoin. Up until that point, I just couldn't see it. I'd done what everyone else had done in the 2017 cycle, which was about 2 hours worth of research before I put some money down and lost it all. Anyway, from about 2011 to that time, I'd learned about as much as I could about real estate, which is pretty much just driven by demand and supply factors. Demand and supply of credit was one of those major factors, but to understand that, you need to have a better understanding of the global monetary system. Once I understood the concept of fiat currency and fractional reserve banking, it made sense that people could at some point lose faith in the US dollar. Since that time in 2019 when the penny dropped, The US have gone to town on money printing, and all asset classes have seen significant rises, apart from maybe bonds. As 2020 rolled around, the price of Bitcoin started skyrocketing. I came to the next rule, and that is invest your time, not your money. There is a subtle difference between rule number 1 and rule number 2 here. If you don't invest your time first, you risk having the experience of one big failure and never getting enough repetitions of failure in for the compounding to take effect. You must learn enough to be smart enough not to get wiped out too soon. What occurred to me at the time was that because of this technological revolution we're going through and the speed of it means that there's going to be a lot of change. A lot of change means opportunity, but opportunities are only taken by people that can see it. The most important bit of wisdom I can give is to spend 20 minutes a day reading, because that's what I did. I got in the habit of reading whilst I had my morning coffee every day. And when the Bitcoin opportunity came for me, I had a high degree of justification to put my money down, and that is because I invested my time for years. So rule number 2 is invest your time and not your money. Before I get on to rule number 3, I want to give you a framework to view through, and by seeing things through this framework, it will allow you a perspective which gets you to take action where it's needed. Have you ever heard the saying, you're the product of your environment? Well, our economic environment has been fake, and if you're under 40, you haven't known anything else. Now, that's a pretty big call, so I'm going to break it down. Finance is cyclical, kind of like the seasons, spring, summer, autumn, winter. The reason you get a cycle is because debt builds up, and as debt builds up, so does risk. And then you get higher interest rates and people start focusing more on paying down their debt and not spending money in the economy. This causes a retraction, or if it's bad enough, a recession. This cycle occurs about once every 10 years. The last recession in Australia prior to the pandemic, I believe, was 1992. Australia went almost 30 years without a recession, which is almost unheard of in all of modern civilization. Believe it or not, we went through extremely prosperous times. Our expectations are built on our experience, which is largely built on our environment, and our economic environment was unreal. And now we come to today, and the everything crisis is worsening. You know what I'm talking about. Every week there's a different crisis happening. As a nation, we created a fake environment, and it's led to the frustrations you're having now. The cost of everything feels like it's constantly going up. Debt repayments are high because house values are to the moon, meaning our personal debt is higher. People are angry because their expectations of what their life was meant to be are not being met. If this is you, you have every right to be upset. Here's the thing. I've learnt this from investing my time and learning about finance over the centuries. Unless you are wealthy, finance is meant to be hard. Life is hard. And this brings us to rule number 3. For things to change, you need to change. You cannot change the economic environment we're in, and the truth is we've all been dealt the same hand when it comes to that. It feels like there's this non-stop complaining about the housing crisis or the rent crisis or the homelessness crisis or the cost of living crisis or the climate crisis, and everyone is justified in feeling that way. The only problem is that it doesn't change anything. The more people that are in the camp of complaining means the less people that are looking for opportunities, the less people that are compounding their experience, the less people that are investing their time. There is no better time to implement these rules right now. All it takes is a decision. My purpose with this channel is to help people make it financially. I plan to do that by producing good content, so if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel. I'm also in the process of building a free community aimed at helping people answer that question of how do I make it financially, because let's face it, it's really hard in this day and age. Links are in the description below for that. Finally, if you want to support me, I run a mortgage broking business and rely on helping people with home loans. If you need help paying off your home loan faster, I'm putting together a program doing just that. I'm talking about really moving the needle when it comes to this sort of stuff. Just last night, I spoke with a couple and we figured out a way how they could get 350 grand ahead just by applying some simple strategies. You can email me directly if you need help with that. FYI, there are limited people I'm taking on for this. just because I'm running a business and I'm busy. If you're still watching, a really genuine thank you. I'd love to see your comments below. This story meant a lot for me because it's been based on my experience. So hopefully I get some encouraging feedback. Cheers.